Welcome to 2 Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we traverse the multiverse of books, trying to get rid of the boring ones, find the fun again, recenter everything, and have a good time. We are reading Lanark by Alistair Gray for this season, and we are also the only books podcast out there that's not afraid to talk about pegging, be it the Deadpool style, the cribbage style, or the shaky dance in a couch style. So we're gonna have fun this week. One quick spoiler alert, guys. JD Vance is in this section of the book, which is fucking bizarre, and I cannot wait to talk about that. But let's set the stage. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox. How you doing, Brian?
I am ascending from the lower levels of hell today, as you can see with this glorious light. Loving life, singing Bone Thugs, Wake Up, It's the First of the Month, in my head, ready to go.
If you're not watching this live on YouTube, if you're listening to this, Brian has an immaculate glow behind him. It truly is like you've moved from Unthanked to Provon and are getting that sunlight.
It's the quantum sunlight.
Yeah, you got to buy the quantum time for the quantum sunlight. There is so much in this section that is so good. Also joining us today, Kaya Stromanis, translator, editor, employee of Open Letter, hat wearer.
Yep.
How are you today, Kaya?
I am excited to talk about the section. I am 30 pages short, but I'm...
You didn't even get to JD.
I didn't, but that's okay. And I'm excited to hear about it because I'm honestly and earnestly reading to catch up. So I'm like chronically 30 pages behind for the last few weeks, but I am excited to talk about this section and wrap this fucker up because I've got a new shower to christen and break in as soon as this is done. So that's why the hat, because I've been holding out. I'm going to be drunk by 11, I guess, because I've got a bottle of shower champagne in the fridge.
This is way too much information. But
it's not enough information.
What is shower champagne? Because there's like that can go very different ways.
So
definition of
shower
champagne.
I'm just
not the R. Kelly style.
Just taking the term shower beer, and instead of having a beer,
just
having a bottle of
anything that you could drink in the shower.
But it's celebratory because the contractor finished his job yesterday. So we have a working shower upstairs. And that means
I can bathe. All right.
Yeah. Well, no, we've been Chad everyone's been taking baths. So it's been a lot of bath water.
A lot of pool trips.
Yeah, a lot of pool trips, a lot of bath water. I took a very nice long shower at my mom's house at the beginning of this week. Catching up. I'm 30 pages behind on showers too.
So for anyone listening, we are reading from today. We're covering 398 through 354, which goes up through chapter 38 of book 4 of Lanark. Anyways, Brian, you're going to jump in on the shower, but you have contractor issues, so you should be familiar with all that.
Oh yeah. I wanted to sell my house about 3 months ago, but I can't because it's not done being fixed. So hooray. I'm month 15 of a 4-month remodel.
That seems about right. Well, it's just like in this section, like in Unthanked, time doesn't move in decimal ways.
No, this is hell. You keep saying to yourself, this is hell. Oh, no. It's way worse. It can get way worse than this. Oh, okay. I agree. It could get way worse.
When they go to get on the bus and the bus is shaped like one of the human little pills that they eat, and he's like, this is hell. And he's like, nah, there's nothing yet, buddy.
This is shower champagne problems,
Yeah, this is nothing.
At least you're living in the light, Brian.
So, I do want to reinforce my Deadpool thing for a second. We both were able to see it this week. I want to send some shouts to River Falls Theater here in Wisconsin. Tuesday, all day, $3 tickets to see a movie and $3 medium-sized popcorn. So you can go legitimately to the movie theater and you have popcorn and a ticket for $6.
And new Glarus on tap, I will mention.
Yeah, and beer on tap.
What are you watching? Like the theatrical release of E.T. at the time it came out, like $6 to see a movie? It's like
right? It's like a time warp.
1983 or something.
Wait, they only show 2 movies. Movies, and they're showing Deadpool and Wolverine, and they're showing Twisters. And when I went at the 5:20 shows, It was crowded, packed, over the gills, and Twisters sold out.
Is it just a rehash of the one with Helen Hunt?
Twister,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. I super want to see it though. I definitely really want to see it. I think it's gonna be amazing. But Deadpool, really truly, as someone who's watched a lot of Marvel movies and likes all this comic book stuff, but has not seen the recent ones, is amazing. This visual is incredible. Go watch the YouTube opening to this episode if you're hearing this on your podcast, because this is something else.
No, we'll put it back.
But I haven't seen a lot of the new Marvel movies, but I know that they kind of suck and they're all like multiverse bullshit. This movie, Deadpool, is the Kamala Harris of film. Like, it gets rid of, it's like, yeah, we were doing okay there. It wasn't the worst, but it wasn't our best stuff. We got kind of boring and old and stale and weren't really saying things correctly anymore. And the message was all muddled. Let's just fucking get rid of that and like recenter around the idea that these movies are just supposed to be dumb fun and you hanging out with cool friends that are superheroes doing fun shit for a little bit of your life. And that's it. It is truly like, it is such a metaphor for the Democratic Party right now that I can't get past how important it is to me as for happiness reasons. This movie made me happy again.
We can all just get along.
So does the villain gratify themselves with a couch?
Because it does.
Close.
There is. That's
The
not
Time Ripper, but
there's a Time Ripper. Yeah.
It's clearly a rumor, but that's a fun rumor, I gotta say.
Dude, so it's the best thing that's
I'm
happened.
I'm here for it.
Well, you know, I mean, the second, okay, so yeah, everyone knows that JD Vance fucked a couch, allegedly. But the best part of it is that once all those jokes started, like the guy sends out the tweet, deletes his account immediately, and is basically leaves this tweet into the Twitter sphere to become like the greatest meme of all time. And then the AP has to be like, JD Vance did not fuck a couch. And they put this
story. Yeah.
Like, it has the best twist to it too. So they're like, no, in his book, they designate these pages. They're like, nowhere in the book does he say he fucked a couch. And then they have to delete that article because it's not actually fact checking the fact that he did fuck a couch. They don't know if he fucked a couch. They only know that it's not in the book. So that violates the AP's terms of fact checking. So they have to get rid of the article and be like, well, we can't say he didn't fuck a couch.
What kind of couch was it? Love seat, sectional
leather.
Yeah.
All the jokes are so good. If there's
microfiber, cleans up better.
Oh God, that leather. Oh, they're so good. They're all the jokes are so good.
Some hot boot play action.
When you preach only having sex for procreation, but you also fuck couches, that's called Ottoman-splaining. But yeah, JD Vance's meme, Deadpool, and my new obsession with cribbage, which also uses terminology that is so wrong and I love so much. You're always pegging your score. You're pegging your score, and then if you have the knob in your hand, you get a point. If you get the knob in your hand, you're doing well. Like, what the fuck is this game like that they invented way back when and put in like legitimately the dirtiest words that you could be using for like cards?
I kind of imagine JD Vance is sort of like Tech Nike. He's at the store, rubbing his hand against all the couches. What's the stain guard on this one? Well, actually, sir.
I mean, but
asking these strange questions. They're like, all right, well,
I mean,
the couches, I guess.
We think it's weird, but you didn't see what blanket she had on that night. So, I don't want to couch shame her, but nevertheless.
These 8-way hand-tied springs. Tell me about the steaming of the wood on this sofa.
Wood being the operative word there. Yeah. So anyways.
So we did read a book.
I think enough about that. Yeah, I have like 14 jokes that I didn't talk about last week. I do have 2 follow-ups to last week, which you weren't here, Brian, but these 2 I left in my notes and I forgot. Well, one I left in my notes, and the other one is new. First off, we talked about some of the reviews for this book, and the reviews are all like so inconclusive in weird ways. Like there'll be a lot of them that are praising. I was just looking up like regular people reviews, and a lot of them are like, you know, generally like, I like this book a lot, but 90% of them are basically like, this is a great book. I don't understand it. Shit's out of order. You'll really enjoy it. Read this book. It's fun. And it's like, that's so unsettled. Like I was looking for like people diving into like, what is the metaphor? What are the connective tissues? What are like the things between these different sections? Like, and there's none of that. But what does come up over and over again is like how confusing it is that the pieces are out of order, which I don't think that's true. And I don't think they're out of order, actually. I could make that argument by the end that they're definitely not out of order. However, I found this other thing at the same time randomly that's called Chronologically Lost, in which someone recut the TV show Lost and took all of the flashbacks and whatnot and put everything into order. So you watch everyone's life up to the island and all that stuff first, and then the island stuff, and then the post-island stuff. But to make it like more understandable, I guess, but also like just to see what that looked like. And I thought about that, and that's where this is leading. I thought about that in relation to this book. And I think if you did put this in order, it wouldn't make as much sense. I think that some of the fact of the oracle, the way that we're grounded in unthink at the beginning, I think that that's so much more intentional to how the book should be written than labeling it 3-1-2-4 or 3-1-2-4 epilogue. And then the final chapters is like an interlude or prologue in there too, is like more of like the sort of like uber structure game of it. But like it is, if you eliminate all those terms and just read it as like a book with no designations, it's definitely not out of order. And it's not even that confusing in that regard. So that was one thing I was going to say. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
My thought on it is, I don't know. This stuff happens all the time. Remember like how groundbreaking Pulp Fiction was when it
That's
came
one
out?
that I wanted to talk about.
Okay, like, oh my God, like it's out of order. And he's just like, well, I just read a book and books aren't always in order. Why can't we
Yeah.
do that in cinema? Like this isn't that, I don't know.
Rashomon,
Yeah,
different version.
it's not a big deal. Also,
Really isn't.
the thing that I find interesting though is people like saying it doesn't make sense and whatever. Also fine because there's things that people like and they have no idea what it's actually about and they just like it because it's kind of weird. I remember cinematically when Donnie Darko came out.
Fucking love that
Uh,
movie.
oh my gosh, you got to see it! Like, what's it about? I don't know, but there's this rabbit
There's a rabbit
and a jet plane falls on his house.
and a
It's like,
Tears for Fears song, correct?
yeah, and Patrick Swayze's in it. I don't know.
Jake
But
Gyllenhaal breaking out.
and you could obviously like you can watch the video essays on YouTube of people that go into like a deep dive of what everything means, but you don't need any of that to just enjoy like this is freaking weird. It's kind of
Yeah.
cool, right? And
Yeah,
I think this might be one of those type of works. What do you think, Kaya?
I mean, we briefly mentioned Memento last week as one of those sort of, backward-esque, and I didn't say it during the podcast, but it made me think of how people, at least at a certain point, used to that Tarantinoing something was a verb for like telling a story from the end and then working backwards. So like, yeah, I would agree that it's not new to our generation, at least. And I don't think it's been new before that. And like, even I guess even in terms of things that are out of order, like I grew up quite literally watching Monty Python, and like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. First time I saw it, I hated it because it was so chopped up and it was so
like
just
legs and arms.
yeah, like legs and arms. It's a flesh wound. It was so chopped up and so all over the place. And it wasn't until I was, I think the first time I watched it was like 9. And then it wasn't until subsequent rewatchings that I started to understand what was going on with it. But yeah, I don't think it's unsettling to see things out of order. I don't think it's unnatural. But I do think it's based on, like whatever content you are used to consuming.
Yeah, I think that my thing with the reviews that are like just like public reviews is that you don't have to dwell on that. Like we all have seen it, we all recognize it. You can be like, okay, that's there, and then this fun thing or this thing or here's an idea or like here's something else that came out of it. Like the foregrounding that so much was like kind of just like I don't know, just nothing there. The other thing I want to mention is we talked about the 2 Attilas that we're bringing out, which everyone pre-ordered. They're online. You can go to them. They have pictures of the authors, so you can tell the difference as to which one's which. As with the description, I got a text message the other day from New York Review of Books, Sarah Kramer at New York Review of Books, about how I don't know if she's joking or not, but she's like, we want to publish this, but it's like Chateaubriand, this French writer that they published before, wrote a book called Atala that I believe translates into English as Attila. So we like could truly corner the market on Attila books. I was like, you guys need to do this and bring it out the same day we're bringing out our 2 Attila books, which is April 1st. So this would be like the greatest like publishing April Fool's
Your
joke
distributor is going to just implode. Yeah.
So that's my follow-up. So we can get into this. Brian,
They're going to implode as if Gambit flicked a card into the middle of them, and there's a delayed reaction. Gambit!
Fucking Gambit. Who's your dialogue coach? A minion? There's so many great lines in that movie. Anyways, so Brian, you missed last week. Where are you at feeling wise with this now?
Oh, I'm loving it. It's getting cooler and cooler and cooler. I'm curious. Well, just 2 things real quick. With the being out of order and reading it, and maybe feeling, on tilted from it. It makes me think of like maybe we take a lot for granted as readers, like a short story, like an occurrence on Owl Creek Bridge.
Yeah.
The Ambrose Bierce
incident.
Spoiler alert: this guy's going to get hung. He's the rope breaks and he starts to run away. And he's trying to get home. He's fleeing. It's the Civil War. I think it was like late 1800s when the story came out. And as he's getting closer and closer to his house, time starts to slow down. It feels weird. And then he realizes the rope never broke, and it's just his final dream as he's dying. And so like it becomes this trope that it's really borrowing heavily off of that short story.
Yeah.
And I imagine that was one of those like, oh my God, kind of stories when it first came out. Like, I didn't know you could do that. This completely shatters my reality of how a story can be. And like, we're like, oh yeah, I've seen cartoons that do that, Jacob's Ladder, whatever. Like, everybody borrows from it, steals from it, whatever. I don't know what would be like the touchstone piece of literature for being fractured and out of order and chopped up and strange, but it's one of those things. I think like it's not that big a deal because it's been done so many times. It's something we understand. It may not be different for someone that's read a little bit, but I could see like if it's your first time coming across something like that, it would really fracture you. Like, this is going to be really silly, but I remember as a kid when I first read like an adult book. And by adult, just like something that didn't have pictures in it. So I was reading the novel Dances with Wolves because the movie had come out, and so I wanted to see what the book was. And I was so confused because it was telling like a point of view from a Native American and then a point of view from a soldier, and I was really confused because I thought it had to be one character with one through line. And then as soon as it broke into like, I couldn't keep it. I was like, what's going on? I was so confused. And then I realized like, oh, wow, you can jump to different characters. This is crazy.
There, on a sad related note, I've had students in the past read a short story collection and be like, I didn't get how these fit together. These chapters have different people.
Yeah.
Like that broke some minds.
Well, do you think that's why there's some, like going off of your thread, Brian, like YA books where they have a bunch of different characters, and instead of giving the chapters like separate chapter headings or numbers, it's like Rhea, Chuck.
Yeah.
Like it starts with the character's name, so you know exactly where you're at.
Sure.
Maybe Alexander Comes.
Alexander Comes is the great. I clocked that as well, and I was like, "This is too much."
You're fresh off Deadpool, yeah. It's tainted. You're tainted.
I'm looking for pegging. So there are a lot of threads to this that we could talk about.
That's JD Vance's couch name.
Oh no.
So let's try and bring this back. So the one thread that we could talk about is actually the title that I randomly chose for this episode of Not a Domestic Man, which we're in Unthank finally. They're in a cathedral where they're gonna live. time is all fucked up. Like it's contractor time. Like things move fast, but nothing happens. They don't have decimal clocks, which we can talk about later. But he and Rima's pregnant. She's gonna have her baby, and they get sent to like the art room to live for a bit because nobody's gonna use the arts room. And then suddenly this dude shows up and in a like almost Pinchonian way starts doing some sort of like comedy bit / music song singing about not being a domestic man and just like his wife. But then that's like a one-off like tosser of a joke, and it's like kind of funny and kind of not. And then what happens is she gives birth to the baby like instantly because things just move at like at light speed in this world. And
Why is in the next page? Why is father hysterical?
yeah, exactly.
Wait,
So
how old's your kid?
your kid's like goes from being born to like 14 in like a matter of 10 pages. But he
Or
like
if there's one like the most man section of this book, the birth is just like
yeah, absolutely. And then he then goes for a walk because he's happy to go for a walk, and he comes back and they're like, "You've been gone forever." Like, and she's all hooking up with Sludden again, more or less. So, like he's holding the baby. It's all like, but he then they get into like weird fights, have their little like makeup session of screwing with a seeming teenager nearby, and have like a weird relationship. So like that not a domestic man thing actually seems to then kind of foreshadow this section of like the domesticity and like the fact that Lanark and Rima don't really work. And she even like at one point she's like, "Oh, I'm going out dancing with Frankie, you know, we're gonna go have a good time and meet some dudes." And then he walks out the door and Frankie's there. Like he doesn't even check that. There's like a real domestic issue thing that plays out here really fast. And it's unfortunate that we end on 454 because chapter 39, which we'll read for next week, is called Divorce. So it would maybe been the capper on that kind of arc to it. But I thought that was kind of interesting for this section where it does do that. There's also like the job aspect to it. And then the most important part, which I think the frontispiece to book 4 that we talked about last week sort of indicates that this book is a like societal structures and governments and like that sort of play to it. But those are the 3 things that I really like picked up on within this section and that we could follow. I don't know if any one of those appeals to you the most. Let me say one other thing real quick. Last week when one of the reviews we read, there's a guy who was like, he's like, "Yeah, you know, I didn't really get the unthank stuff until page 410. And then suddenly I loved it all." And I was like, what a bizarre, like specific reference. And then when I was reading, I got to page 410, most marked up page in my book copy so far. 410 is like where it's all at. All of a sudden, everything clocks into place about like the capitalism, about structures of like money, about the way that like things are exploitative and abusive. All of this is like spot on, perfect, like takedown of like our modern world in relation to that. And I'm like, yes, I'm in 100%. This guy is absolutely right. 410, if you're having any issues with unthinking, being like, I'm not into this Kafka shit, or like, this is too weird, get to 410 and it will like, it does like just fall in there. And then everything after that seems to progress so smartly and fun and is such a clear satire after that moment.
agreed.
Like such a clear satire.
Agreed. And like this, I will say that this is probably one of the first Lanark sections that I've actually like you said, everything clicks into it. And I'm like, okay, even like everything being, yeah, definitely agree. And all the terminology starts to make sense.
Yeah, exactly. There's a side note. I started reading this book by Amory McDuffie, King Goshawk and the Birds, which is also a satire. It's written in the 20s, late 20s in Ireland, and is like a satire of politics at that time. But it has some real weird similarities to this. It's also surreal. Like there's a king of the world who's like collecting all the birds because his wife likes birds, and there's a philosopher who goes to heaven and brings back like an Irish warrior to like save the world for them. But the Irish warrior comes back to the world and walks around and is like, eats all this food, and he's like, they're charging me for food, this is ridiculous, like none of this shit makes any sense. And he's like, this guy's like, you need to work to be able to like earn money to do this. He's like, this is unacceptable. And it like goes down the same sort of path of like how the people are being exploited for the wealthy, and like and various joys are being taken away in order because they cost money and because people are trying to get further and further, more and more wealthy. Like it's got like some similarities to this, so it's kind of fun to read the two sections next to one another. But Brian, you go, take it away.
I was really interested with this section with the repetition of intersections, whether it's like actually being on the road, whether it's the intersection of like man and wife, the intersection of starting family, like there's all these different intersections. And then I also noticed with all these different intersections, it felt the most postmodern in
Mm.
this section, where things are starting to become very broken and chaotic and meaningless and strange, and yeah, and also like Kafka-esque. And it made me question what what Gray's opinion of postmodernism is in this section, because I don't feel like he's on board with it.
Huh. You and Kaya can go deep into the like what was Alistair Gray's thoughts
Yeah.
and experiences part.
This is our assignment. This is
Okay.
Well, interestingly enough, I don't know that that's exactly going to be explained, but if you haven't seen this yet, the end of the book that we include in this for the last episode is called Tailpiece: How Lanark Grew, and it is his interview about how the book got written and what happened with it. There might be something within there that might indicate that. He doesn't ever really reference a lot of stuff. I don't remember ever like communicating with him except via his agent when we did Poor Things and we're looking at stuff. But my sense is always that he's just an artist. Like he didn't really like prescribe anything. Like Poor Things is a very postmodern book, but also like strange. Like, and postmodernism is meaningless in so many ways as like a category, since it's like essentially all inclusive. It's like that incompleteness theorem sort of sensibility where like you can say anything is or isn't within that field. But my feeling about him was that he really was interested in the visual arts first, and that a lot of his writing is sort of like the influence by that visual aspect, both in terms of the print. Like this isn't as crazy as Poor Things, because Poor Things has like handwritten sections that are like smeared from like being wet, and like truly visual elements that are like, and a lot more drawings like of characters are drawn, they'll just be in there. This has some of that with those frontispieces, but like the descriptions of Lanark or of Unthink in particular, like feel like at points where he's like describing a painting, like or like in that more visual world of it. And there are the ideas, but also like that mural that's described in when that whatchamacallit, Duncan's painting, like all of like the kind of Boschian sort of like shit on top of shit. Like the descriptions of the chapter house where they meet is like both symbolic but also very like visual. Like there's all the columns, people are behind the columns, they're seated in certain ways. It feels like kind of like religious in a sense, but also like paired up with that like a parliament, and like all that sort of postmodern like bricolage or whatever you call, where it's like pieces on top of each other and like both visual and like and coherent. Like he seems to be right in that, but I feel like it's not like even like like maybe to what you're saying, like that he's not like, oh, I believe in this particular thread of writing or going along this way, so much as like he's just doing his bit, and it does sit well within that sphere, although not necessarily like Pynchon or whomever else. You could just put it in there because it is weird, but maybe he's like on his own path.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking of the parts where someone will say like, or Reem will be like, "Oh, my boyfriend's a painter," and Lanark's like, "Not a painter."
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not a postmodern. I'm not a painter. I'm not
any
this.
of
You
this
can't
shit.
pigeonhole me.
Let me free. It's not a songwriter, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's neither there nor here. That's interesting though, and I haven't been reading it and through that lens, but I do appreciate it and can see where you're coming from with that.
Well, there's that, but there's also, in addition to it, like the bizarreness of bureaucracy and what it does to the individual.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
because there's like the physical bodies, how they're kind of grotesque and strange, but then in this one we're starting to see, just like, I need money. Okay, what do I need? Well, you need time. Okay, well then I need like this like weird like what, and it's like leading him down to this like stranger and stranger and weirder and weirder and deeper hell as he's like getting like funneled and churned out through this machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Creature.
Totally. I just flipped to this. This isn't exactly related to that, but for all of us with kids, the line on 427 where Lanark's holding Alexander, he felt like he was carrying a dwarf who kept hitting him on the head with a stick. A dwarf he could neither disarm nor put down is maybe the best line about parenting that I've read in a while. Oh man, but in terms of that thing, so in terms of like the system, it is that page 410, like that section,
Yep.
chapter house, where they go and talk about like what's going on, and they bring Lanark in because he's just been in the institute met with Monbaden or whatever his name is, Monbaden, and
Monbado.
Monbado, and they want to know if he knows anything, if he has any information, and he's like, yeah, they're gonna get rid of you guys. They're like, we're going to just swallow this city. We're really excited about it. And then they get into like a argument about whether or not cities have been swallowed or ravaged before and ones that have been left out. And they're like, fine. That's all like such a bureaucracy sort of moment. Like I can see every meeting where it's like, no, but actually this happened in the past. Yeah.
You could say they're a committee of contrarians, but in the margin I have that they're a committee of Karens. Because like this is a committee of complainers and everybody's just like their own type of Karen.
Yeah, very, very, very true. But they're like, okay, so and then what's fun from that angle, that another plot point that runs throughout here is that they're like, well, maybe there's some truth to this because there was this accident that happened outside of our town, which we know about from the previous section, and they're not cleaning it up. Like, and now we're not getting any food. And like we're getting choked out here. And Lanark's like, yo, why don't you just take care of yourself? And like, we can't do that. He's like, just spray it into the sewer. Who gives a shit? And so they sprayed into the sewer, creating a noxious gas that's going to kill everyone. And now Sludden has to come on into the TV and be like, okay, guys, we're kind of maybe going to die from this poison that resulted from us following Lanark's idea and putting everything in the sewer. So you need to like block up all your holes, which is like an anti-JD Vance and Tech Knight moment, but they're all got to block their holes up in their houses
And with the holes.
fill the holes. Um, and like Sludden tells him all that. That's kind of where we end. But one of the things that's cool about that, not only is it like the weird coincidence, the sort of like buying into the conspiracy or potential conspiracy, or that might be true or whatever, is that Sludden actually seems like a legit good politician at that moment. Like it's all like pretty on the up and up. He's like, yeah, we did save you guys. We didn't have any food. Now we have food, but we kind of, there's an unintended consequence. And we're just going to be honest about this. And like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you rubber. We're going to the rubber cement or whatever it was, or the to patch up your holes. We're going to help you out with this. Things will be allowed here. Also, we can't tell you like how long it's take because we don't have clocks anymore. And we just run things by our heartbeats. And like, so we found a clock and we're going to put it on the TV and you can watch the clock and know what time it is. And it's like, this is all like truly good politician acting. Like, I'm up and up.
Good politician. There's a we can put a pin in this, but there's an interesting relationship with food in this book.
There's always, yeah.
Food, light, art, yeah.
Really art. The food thing is so frequent. I don't know if you got to this. Where is it on here? Some of the slogans. There's that part where like where's the best? There's various ones that are like they do get on that one. Here it is. Now everyone can taste the rich human goodness and frozen secrets, the food of presidents. Like it's all like so weird and gross, especially because we know that like if true, the institute wants to suck up unthinks so that they have the energy to create more food. There's a point in this. So on that 410, there is like the whole bit about like how the world works, and they keep referring to the creature. And Lanark's like, would you tell me what the creature is? There's a conspiracy which owns and manipulates everything for profit. Are you talking about the wealthy? Yes, but not the wealthy in coins and banknotes. That sort is whatever. And then this guy's like, what I hate most is their conceit. Their institute breaks whole populations into winners and losers and calls itself culture. Their council destroys every way of life which doesn't bring them a profit and calls itself government. They pretend culture and government are supremely independent powers when they're nothing but gloves on the hands of Volstat and Quantum, Cortexan, and Algolachniks, which are all corporations that run this world. And then later, how did that help? As the creature couldn't stay rich by selling necessary things to the folk who made them, it sold destructive things to the council. Then the war started, and the destructive things were used to wreck the necessary things. The creature profited by replacing both. And then we get to the line that we talked about, Brian, you and I did on an episode where we were alone. That was the Latin for book 2, the frontispiece of book 2, of man is the pie that bakes and eats himself, and the recipe is separation. And so like the whole thing of like corporations destroy, create division, create destruction, make money by replacing both things, and make it so that man kills himself by being separated and essentially destroying the world. Good times.
Here, here.
Absolutely spot the fuck on. And then related to that, when you're talking about your the job part, and this is where the JD Vance thing comes on, is that he goes to the job thing and he's like, well, I have a council pass. Like, oh, you could get a real job then. It's essentially like a degree. So like in this world, like that kind of metaphor, they're like, you've got a council identification or whatever they call it. They're like, you can get a professional job. You don't have to be a maker of these shitty one-room houses, small houses, essentially. You can actually go do a real job. And his job is listening to people complain and then writing down their name and address and just delaying the inevitable non-help that they're going to receive, which is pretty funny in itself. But the JD Vance page is 438, in which there's a guy. So Gilchrist talks about stuff about like how they exist to create like employment stability, surroundings, their offices that are all essentially the same. Employment ensures stability. Stability lets us reshape our surroundings. The improved surroundings become a new condition of employment. The snake eats its tail. Nothing is precedence. This great building, the center of all centers, the Tower of Welfare, exists to maintain full employment, reasonable stability, and decent surroundings. And then Pettigrew, who is the JD Vance like analog here, it's like animals. We deal with animals here. The scruff, the scum, the lowest of the low. And he goes on there. So Gilchrist was like, yeah, he's talking about how, there's not enough jobs and houses. The unemployed and homeless tend to be less clever or less healthy or less energetic than the rest of us. That is legitimately a line from Hillbilly Elegy. They're a horde of stupid, dirty layabouts, says Pettigrew. I know them. I grew up among them. You middle-class liberals like to pet them, but I wouldn't even let them breed. What we need is an X-ray device under the turnstiles at the football stadiums. Each man going through would get a blast of 900 Redkins right in the testicles. It would be perfectly painless. They wouldn't know what had happened until they got a wee printed card with their entrance ticket. Dear sir, it would say, you may now ride your wife in perfect safety. And then Gilchrist again is like, dude, come on, man. You talk as if this is their fault. Poverty is like part of the system. And he's like, blame the unions. Prosperity is made by the bosses struggling with each other for more wealth. If they have to struggle with their workers too, then everybody loses. No wonder the big groups are shifting their factories to the coolie continents. I'm only thankful for that. The folk who lose most in the end are the envious sods who own the least. Greed isn't a pretty thing, but envy is far, far worse. This is straight up Republican 2024 playbook bullshit, like straight away. And it was then too, because 81 is like Thatcher period is coming, like Reagan's there. Like we're all like, all that's like part of that same thing. But reading that last night in light of like the couch fucking and thinking of Hillbilly Elegy was like, Jesus Christ, like this is just like baldly on the page. And it's in our world all the time now, but and here it's like funny and we can laugh about it. We can identify it as like, oh, this is bad. And then we get to real life and you're like, yep, that's what everything is. And it's like that Rick and Morty episode. It's just slavery with extra steps.
Mm-hmm.
What's creepy is if you go back to like 411, so, gives you how the systems work and what's going on. And he says, how can men recognize their real enemies when their family, schools, and work teach them to struggle with each other and to believe law and decency come from the teachers? My son won't be taught that, said Lanark firmly. You have a son? Not yet. Right. But we already know what's going to happen with with the son. It's oh no.
It's not gonna
oh dear.
Alexander comes. So interesting.
Same as it ever was.
Same as it ever was. Oh god, there's so many good lines in this section. So then so there's that aspect to it. And then we get to the advertisement parts. And that was also really funny. Related to the job thing. So when Lanark first starts his job, his friend comes in and is like, dude, can you help me? My house is too small. I live in a mow home, which I create. I build them. That's all we can have. You don't get an interior bathroom. There's like no space. We're going to have another baby. This is fucked. Like, we need out. Like, what can we do? And he's like, nothing essentially. And he's like, can you help me get a job here? What do you do? What do they pay for? Why do they pay you? And he's like, Lanark says, I think they employ a lot of well-educated people to keep us comfortable. And because they're afraid we'd be dangerous if we had no work at all. And this ties into my theory about the existence of giant corporations hiring practices, is that they essentially just hire lots of people to do not a lot of useful things, but to keep them buying in the system. That like, if you didn't have them buying into enough people buying into the system of like this like middle management world, then things would start to shake and would fall apart at their foundation. So it's like, we'll give you like, a couple $100,000 to essentially like push spreadsheet. That's what you're going to do. You're going to use lingo and have meetings and push spreadsheets. And that'll keep you happy. You'll be able to buy the houses you want and the cars you want. And like, perfect. This is what, and then we'll just keep moving along. We're raking money out of everyone. Fuck it, man. And this then says that again. Fucking love this book right now. This is like, reading this section was my favorite thing. But after the job thing, they get to the advertisements, or I guess advertisements are before, because he's on his way there. And there's just so many ads on all the buses and everything. And they're all so ridiculous.
It's like very Terry Gilliam.
Yes. Yeah.
That part, right?
That's what I was thinking of too. Like, a home is money. Money is time. Buy time for your family from the Quantum Chronological. They'll love you for it. My favorite one, wise buyers are the best sexers. Buy her a long life and easy death from Quantum Providential. She'll love you for it. I love that that's their tagline, is they'll love you for it. Oh, God, they're all so good. Grind your spectacles with metal tea. The sex champ on the chiliism. I don't even know what that one means. Gloopy appears, or it not appears, but he's referenced. Gloops. The Gloops is back. But then there's this bit,
The Gloops.
The Gloops. This bit about, so he's like, Lanark's like, man, these fucking advertisements are all over the place. This is crazy. And they like read like instructions. And like, yeah, advertisements are instructions, aren't they? And then he's like, sees a poster on the bus window that says, advertising overstimulates, misinforms, corrupts. If you feel this, send your name and address to the Council Advertising Commission and receive your free booklet explaining why we can't do without it. Like, if you think this, let us tell you how you're wrong.
Yeah.
We education supreme. I don't know if there's other places to go here that you guys wanted to get into. Any areas? Oh, I had another stray one. Is the comment on women on page 427. Brilliance, straight brilliance. This guy comes in like is getting, Lanark's got Alexander's screaming and crying and upset, and so his neighbor comes in and is like, he's like, you need a drink, man. And Lanark's like, no, not really, like, just having trouble. And he's like, or he doesn't even say that. The man's like, tell me your woes. He's like, I don't have any woes. And Alexander's screaming in his ear. And the man's like, if it's woman trouble, I can tell you. I was married one time. Like, I've got this. I can tell you what to do. I had a wife who did terrible things I cannot mention in the presence of a queen. And then this line, so fucking brilliant. You see, women are different from us. They're 75% water. You can read that in Pavlov. Like, yes. And he's like, but men are water too. And he's like, yeah, but only 70%. That extra 5% makes the difference. Women have notions and feelings like us, but they got tides too. Tides that keep them floating the bits of a human being together inside them and washing it apart again. They're governed by lunar gravity. You can read that in Newton. How can they follow ordinary notions of decency when they're driven by the moon? I was like, this guy is such a great character actor that would come into a scene and say this crazy shit, like this, like not some shit, and then wander off and like steal the show straight out. Like, he's perfect.
It's half. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh no, go ahead.
To say it's partially offensive. It's like 2 parts offensive, but 3 parts. If I could just run around once a month and be like, get out of my way, I'm governed by the moon.
But it does. It's not. That's it's not like there are a lot of rituals and various like things related to that
He's
within
literally
like
calling him a lunatic with just a little more steps.
right, like a few extra steps. No, but I mean
Yeah.
like not in like a not in like a monthly menstruation way, but like in the way that like there are like feminist and female
Feral, baby.
empowerment things that do relate to like that kind of lunar cycle and ideas of like how that empowers. So it is offensive, but it's kind of not offensive in a sense. It's sort of that the fact that it's the 75% water part from Pavlov.
Just like everybody has the crazy neighbor. It's the crazy
Yeah.
neighbor. Like, okay, go away, please.
Yeah, whatever, man. It's not all about wheelbarrows. Like, get out of here. Like, oh fuck. Oh, it's so funny. I really, really, really enjoy this section. I'm
Hey, Chad,
psyched.
I think Alexander's coming.
Oops. You guys chat.
He was up here, and then I heard his little feet pitter patter. I was like, oh, he's gonna go show up on the other screen. He's gonna time jump.
Such a goof. Such a
All right.
goof.
Well, I have my line for the section then. I've had it
Yeah.
picked out.
Same.
All right. You want to go first?
Nope, you go first.
All right. Mine's on 439 when he's needed to get a job because he's has a family now. And it's in the middle of page 439. It's the hardest job we have. You must give an appearance of listening closely.
I love that. I love that. I've read almost all my favorite lines. Let me just see if I can find another one here. I've gone through all of them. Kai, you go.
Okay. So mine's at the bottom of 416, where Sledden's reading the newspaper. And very last paragraph. Although respect for the president director and respect for the decimal hour are not connected in logic, they seem to feed irrationally on each other in a state of collapsing confidence. And I felt like that was, I mean, if you remove director and just like respect for the president, respect for the decimal hour, I don't know. I just like that's like, it's not logical. It's an infinite giggle loop of collapsing confidence. Like, okay.
I think mine ties into both of yours. I'm sick of these big, vague names that power keeps hiding behind. Oh, so good. Oh shit, I didn't look at where we're supposed to read till tomorrow. While I do this, Kaya, tell everyone about our sale that's going on at Open Letter.
Yeah, so Open Letter, Alex. So for the month of August, it's Women in Translation Month, and Open Letter Books is offering a whopping 40% off on all of its titles written by women, or I should say, what's the proper way? Women or those who identify as women, as well as books translated by women. And I think that's the only. I think we only have. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I'm trying to be really PC about it, but 40% off on all books written by or translated by women, women identifying, female identifying persons.
Yeah, there's a list which I'll drop into the notes here so that anyone that watches this later can access it. But if you go to this particular page, all the books that are listed here are 40% off. The discount comes up automatically at checkout, so you don't need to put anything in, and it will last until August 31st to celebrate Women in Translation Month, which was started by Madel Rosinski way back in 2014. So it's the 10-year anniversary of starting this as what was at that time just a hashtag, and then led to a lot of articles, a lot of research. We've done a lot of research on 3%, all to lift women in translation, having their books translated. One thing that I did last year, I kind of forgot about because this year's been tough, was that last year is the first year that, according to the translation database, the number of books written by men and translated in English and written by women and translated in English were equal. It had been a difference of like 2-1 in favor of men at the start of the database, and now is like same. And like in some ways, I think that what she did and what people rallied around is part of the reason that has happened. So shouts to that. Only other thing is I have a new post up at the Mining Delkey Archive about unfinished trilogies, specifically this Alpine trilogy by Arno Kamenisch, a Swiss writer. It's really interesting. And his translator, a Scottish writer, who had moved from Northern Ireland to Scotland, identifies as Scottish. His short story collection, which I think you would really like, Brian, which is great, uses language in a weird way, somewhat even like more than Lanark. But he also, I was going to say did a runner, but that's not quite true. He decided to like just not write anymore. Like he had translated like 10 books over like 4-year period, wrote his story collection, got a lot of praise, a lot of attention, and then just gone. And has not written or translated anything since. So interesting. I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know. Who knows? It's written. It's a thing that exists. You can read it.
Love a disappearing act.
It's like the literature of the no. It's like Bartleby and Company from Enrique Villamatas, who that book just documents all these writer stroke history, real people that just like wrote and then just were like, no, I'm good. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm out. Fuck words.
Is that the sort of equivalent of quiet quitting, except you're just like just speaking voice quitting?
Just writing quitting, pen to paper quitting, pen quitting. I don't know. Anyways, okay. So next week we go up through page 518, which is through chapter 41. That's the penultimate episode. So we're really rushing towards the end here of Lanark. And this is the one that will get us through divorce, but also get us through the epilogue, weirdly enough. After which the book will continue. Because this is the way things are working in Lanark. Any last thoughts from anyone? If not, rate and review us. Give us 5 stars always. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your crazy neighbor to listen to the podcast. And tune in next week, and we'll be back with more Lanark talk.